Hi everybody, I am back with my daughter Jordan, and tonight is day 68 of our 90 days to come alive. And tonight I want to talk about something that I think is important that we've touched on before. And as a teenager, here's something I think that all of you can relate to. I know that for me, being a teenager was one of the hardest seasons of my life, outside of like some of the adult things that we all can go through, sickness and death and losing people and marriage and divorce, and all those seasons are hard. But I think it's particularly hard to be a teenager in this day and age. And one of the things that we touched on the last time that we were all together and that Jordan was with me was bullying. We talked about, first of all, I think it's completely heinous, bullying. I'd have no tolerance for it. And I also feel like what's really hard about being a teenager is knowing who you are. And I think it's really hard to get confident in yourself. I think it's really hard to not want to be exactly like everybody, to not just fit in, but to be yourself. And I think the reason that's so hard is because teenagers are always trying to be exactly alike each other. And they want to fit in. They're not taught to not fit in.
Stand out.
They're not taught to be themselves. They're not taught to own who you are. They're told to conform because that's what they all do. That's why there's peer pressure. It wouldn't be called peer pressure if they weren't taught to live like that. And one of the things that I find that's really hard and really challenging raising teens in this day and age is to teach them to be world changers and to stand up and to totally be different than the rest of their classmates, the rest of the world. And it's not because they're better than, it's not because they're any worthy, none of that stuff. It's not about a prideful thing. It's because I feel like that's the only way to get through those years is to learn who you are and to know yourself and to be confident in yourself. And one of the greatest challenges that we have as moms and dads in this society is raising these children to stand up, to not fit the mold, to not be the norm, because quite honestly, the norm I think has become really low. I think we've set the bar so low, and we expect teenagers to drink, we expect them to have sex, we expect them to do all these things, and even the parents who are coming from a Christian standpoint, we believe that they're not doing those things. We are falsely believing those things because we have that moral ethic ourselves, but the teenagers don't have that moral ethic, because even though we may be speaking at them, we're not really understanding them, and they go to school and the peer pressure is intense and they're dealing with it day in and day out. And unless we're dealing with it with them and talking to them about it, the peer pressure is almost too great. And what's also sad is that they're unable to really handle the emotions around those conversations. They're not supposed to be in their minds handling those situations, and they're also not equipped to deal with the situations that they're forced to deal with. And because most kids don't have parents or the relationship with their parents that they really need to get through these years to deal with them, they really struggle, and they hold it all in, and then they explode, or they hold it all in, and unfortunately they look at the world and suicide. And we as parents, Scott and I, really believe that allowing our children to push through even the hard seasons will help them to become better people. And it's love in action, and it's not just words, and it's not just talking to them. It's by pulling them out of themselves to be able to love themselves. And one of the things that Jordan struggles with, which all teenagers struggle with, is understanding how to get through that, to understand how to push through that, to understand how to struggle but not struggle, so that they understand that it's okay to struggle through that, but to also not fall down or to fall down to the peer pressure. So one of the things that she tonight really allowed herself to share with us is that feeling of not being good enough, that even though you can express to everybody else how worthy they are, that you then yourself need to feel worthy, even though you may have told yourself what we've all talked about in these 68 days is how worthy we are. We've talked about the affirmations that we give ourselves. And one of the things that I think that teenagers especially need hey, Yeto, one of the things that I think teenagers especially need is to understand those truths are for them, that God is for them. And it's not just words, that his truth does speak constantly for us and he's not against us. But yet the world, when they go to school and when they go out into the world, that's not the message that the school speaks, and that's not what they hear all day. So they've got to fight the messages that they're hearing all day. They also have to learn to separate themselves from what their friends are dealing with. And their friends talk about all that they're dealing with, whether it's at home or they talk about what they're dealing with their boyfriends, they talk about what they're dealing with their girlfriends, and they're not equipped. She's not equipped, nor should she be equipped to be talking back to these kids about these really big, heavy topics. But yet these big, heavy topics are what's talked about every single day. And it's a challenge for them. So I'm going to just ask you to just share a little bit about that struggle. Like, what's the part of you that's inside that says, wow, that's even harder than I expected it to be? So that they can understand. Like, you have moms and dads, especially moms right now that are watching, that maybe they naively think that their kids are really happy, but inside they're really struggling. What's some of the things that you think the parents need to hear?
I think that every
You're going to have to
child,
slip a little bit.
Sorry, I think that every child, especially me and a lot of my friends, really want their parents to accept them. And
it's okay if you cry.
For people to, especially their parents, to have them felt valued and special, and for them to be affirmed daily that they're worth it and that they aren't like the other kids at school. I just think teenagers in our society now don't understand, or we've lost how important parent child relationship really is, and how special it can be. And children aren't hearing how loved and important they are from their parents. They aren't hearing their worth, which is why they look for it in the kids at school. When they get rejected, they become depressed, and they don't understand what it means to truly be themselves, because we all don't know who we are yet. And without our parents helping us, it's a real struggle to know who we are.
So these kids, what unfortunately that she hears and that we see is that a lot of kids don't have that relationship with their parents, and they're navigating these huge topics without their parents. They're trying to navigate it with each other. So they have this peer pressure, they have this situation where they're trying to navigate it together, but you can't navigate it together as teens. So we need as parents to really be involved for our kids. We need to have the conversations with them. So it doesn't matter if your kids are in a Christian school, a Catholic school, a public high school, they're having sex and they're drinking and they're doing drugs. And they're talking about that all the time. And I'm not saying every kid is, but the majority of them are.
Basically, once one kid isn't, the entire group of girls and guys crowd around that one person, and they force them, and they're like, okay, well, like, it's
a lot of peer pressure.
You want to do it. And then they change because, oh, so-and-so is doing it, I have to do it. And I don't want to be rejected and not accepted because this is like your home away from home. And if you're not getting that love from your home, then you want and you search for it and you crave it from the love from your teachers and from your peers. And when you don't accept that, you start craving love from yourself. And then when you don't get love from yourself because you don't understand how amazing and loved you are, then you just give up. And a lot of kids give up.
And that's why they get into drugs. That's why they get into drinking. That's why they get into having sex. That's why they have the bad relationships, and relationship after relationship after relationship is because they don't have that inner love. They don't have the relationship with God. They're missing their true relationship with God. And a lot of kids are Christian by word, not by deed, not by their heart, right. Not by surrendering their lives, not by surrendering themselves to their parents' authority, not to their parents' authority, and not to God. And that's probably, I would say that's probably the number one reason why so many kids struggle today, is because their heart really isn't given to God. So they can tell you all the right things, they can look you in the eyes and tell you all the right things and look like they're happy, but interiorly, they're broken. Inside their heart, they're broken. Where it matters, they're broken. And, you know, like tonight we had this conversation of, well, why did you do that, Mom? And I was able to look at her and say, you know, Jord, I didn't have two parents. My parents were divorced when I was younger. And I didn't have parents who loved me. I didn't have parents that sat with me and allowed me to scream, allowed me to vent, allowed me to say I'm angry, allowed me to say I'm sad, allowed me to say I'm being bullied at school, allowed me to say I'm hurting. And because I didn't have that, I acted out. I did all the things I don't want my children to go through, and I don't want her to go through. And she's struggling because what's the world telling her? Do what you want, go get what you want, have what you want. And what am I saying to her? And what's God saying to her? Surrender yourself to God, because God wants you to be holy. God wants you to save yourself for your spouse. God wants you to be the kind of person that we're telling you about. But this God to children is this non-tangible, walk by faith God. But for kids, that's really hard because they're seeing the complete opposite amongst their peer group. So if you're watching this right now, would you do us a favor and click the share button? There's a parent or a grandparent that needs to hear what we're talking about tonight, because what we're saying is what the reality is that's going on. And a lot of people want to have their head in the sand. And a lot of people have told me how good this school is or that school is. Well, I'm here to tell you, my kids have gone through 4 Christian schools, a Catholic school, and it's not good. What's going on no school is good. And what is going on in these schools, the kids are broken and they're hurting, and we need to hear this. We need to be talking about this. We need to wrap our arms around our children, and not because we're smothering them, not because we're being controlling, not because we're trying to take away fun or any of those things, or the high school experience. It's not fun. Exactly.
It's not fun. No, it's fun having an amazing relationship with your parents where you can tell them anything and everything, and you don't have to go to school and worry about what you look like, or you have someone at your back every day that you can come home to that will always be there to support you, whether you make a mistake, or whether your day was extremely hard, or whether you got a bad grade, or whether someone says something to you, or whether a girl just was gossiping around. You always have them as your backup, as someone you can always talk to. And I feel like a lot of teenagers don't have that, and they don't have someone who they trust. And I feel like trust is key in any relationship. It's number one. And if they don't have someone who they trust and can talk to every day, especially God, then there's no one for them to link their hearts to, and they don't know what to do with themselves. So they start breaking down.
So here we have the truth, okay? I'm sharing it, we're sharing it because we believe it needs to be spoken about. We can't keep putting our heads in the sand. We can't keep pretending because we send our kids to a Catholic school, a Christian school, or a good private school that kids are not being put in these situations. They are. There's things that they're talking about that I would never talk about because I choose not to put that before my eyes. I choose not to put that before my ears. I don't want to use those words. I don't want to act like that. I don't even want to think like that. So our kids are hearing and seeing these things that they really can't handle, and it makes them depressed. It's why there's so many kids that are depressed in this country. It's why there's so many kids that are anxious in this country. It's why they're struggling in these teenage years. It's why so many of them are committing suicide. It's why so many of them literally feel like there's nothing to go on for, because these years are too hard. They're too incredibly hard. And we need to wrap our arms around these kids and pull it back. And it's okay if we pull it back to say, we're not going to let you just have to handle this pressure all by yourself, because I walked it. And you can learn from my mistakes, and you don't need to make the same mistakes. And it's okay to go against peer pressure. It's okay to be different.
Yeah.
It's okay to be different.
And people are attracted to someone who's confident and different. And it's really special when you can go to school and totally stand up for what you believe in and totally change the curve of the conversation and tell people, no, that's not right. What you're doing is definitely not right. And what I'm doing is blah, 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 blah. And
not in a legalistic way, guys.
Right, like you're not telling anyone you're wrong.
This isn't about judging,
right.
Okay? It's not that she's coming from a place of judging. This is, and when we have these conversations in the car and we have these conversations at night, I'm proud of her because I remember what it felt like to be that girl who was picked on in high school. I remember what it felt like to be that girl that was made fun of in college. I remember what it felt like to be judged the other way and to be made fun of. And the fact that she's 15, 2 years younger than all the other kids in 11th grade, and she's standing up for herself makes me very proud of her. She's not doing it from a place of judgment. She's doing it from a place of, you don't have to live like that. Like all these girls talking to her about how much sex they're having and all these boys talking about how much sex they're having and the drugs they're doing and the drinking that they're doing and going from one girl to the next girl, the next guy to the next guy. And she's saying, you can change. Like you don't have to do that anymore. Like today can be the last day you do that. You can make a choice to never do that again. And it's not because I said that to her. It's not because Scott said that to her. It's because in her self, she's confident in herself and her belief enough to know, I don't care if you tell me I'm crazy, that I'm saving myself for my husband. And they're like, well, why would you do that, Jordan? And you say, because it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's just, I'm saving myself. Like, you want me to go into detail? Yeah. Like, I'm saving myself because I believe that sex is really special. And I believe that it should only be saved for marriage and that we shouldn't give pieces of ourselves away to random people in school and have and lose ourselves and so flippantly give it away to people that we don't really know who we are anymore. And I just feel like it's very sacred and should be kept very special and should be looked upon with a smile on God's face. And when you do that behind your parents' back with a new guy every week and you're still hurting inside, because even though you might tell me, oh well, it's good and I love it, inside you're really hurting and you can't like lie to me. Like I know that you're probably really hurting right now. And yeah, like I want God to look and smile and not be like, oh no, like, you know what I mean? I just want, it's like very special and God-given gift that we shouldn't just, because it's for women, it's the one thing we have that we can never take back. It defines our character. It gives us, it's just who we are. It's a part of our body. It's like so special to us. And unfortunately, a lot of these young girls don't believe that. They don't believe that their body is special. They don't believe that having sex is a big deal. They don't believe that kissing a different boy all the time is a big deal. They don't care about touching. They don't care about any of those things. They actually have been so desensitized by the television shows they're watching, the music that they're listening to, the songs that they're singing, that they're desensitized to how special lovemaking is meant to be. And they don't even think about it as lovemaking. They just think it is, well, it's no big deal. I'm just having sex with her. I'm having sex with him and it doesn't matter. And I was heartbroken when I heard how much is actually talked about at school in a Christian environment. Doesn't
every
matter.
Lunch conversation and every day walking through those halls, there'll be a girl that's across from you at another table and you'll just like hear the conversation. It could be two girls in front of you walking at their lockers, talking at their lockers, walking like literally 2 feet away from a teacher.
And so I was heartbroken. Scott was heartbroken because it's just Daddy, that I was not expecting that when my kids were in school. And it doesn't matter that you think they're protected. They're not protected. You can't protect your kids in this day and age unless you keep them at home and you homeschool. And And even then, I'm not even sure they're protected because they still have the internet and you're not sure what they're doing on the internet and you're not sure what they're doing on a cell phone. And you need to put protections in place. If you, I'm really seriously hoping you're paying attention to what we're saying to you, because this is real. This is no fluff. All the
It's not just my life. Like, I know other girls who are too scared to, and they pull me apart out of a conversation or when I'm walking through the hall, and they tell me, Jordan, what you said touched my heart. Or they'll say, Jordan, I really liked what you said. And because I know that they're too scared, and a lot of the girls just talk about it and say what they say, not even that's necessarily true, because they want to feel like they're better than everyone, that they're special, and that, like, oh, well, she did that, well, she's really cool, like, I have to hang out with her because it will boost my social standing in class, and like, oh, everyone's gonna love me because I did that. And a lot of the girls really are hurting, and they like knowing that someone else wants to stand up for herself and is confident enough in her choices and her decisions and her morals that they can relate to me and to other girls like that, and it's planting a seed inside their heart to slowly change back to the girl that they once were, and not continue to do all the stuff they're doing, because it's like, oh, well, I can be strong like her, and I can stop like her, and I don't have to do what everyone's doing because, oh, look, she's not doing it.
So what I'm saying to you guys is, what I'm asking you is to share what she just told all of you. So this is the reality. This isn't exaggeration. This is the reality of what's going on in not just her school. It's in every school I've had my kids in.
Every single school.
I mean, this has been going on since my kids were in elementary school and middle school and now high school, and we're hearing it over and over again. Please don't talk for just a second. And so for us as parents, this was like shocking, actually, and heartbreaking to hear that this was the conversation. And maybe it's my age, I don't know, but it really upset me. So what we realized is we need to be even more involved and even have the rope a little bit tighter, and not in a tightness way where it's suffocating. It's the tightness of I'm involved, and I'm going to help steer you, because I'm not going to let you go through these years alone, because they're not ready to go through these years alone, and they need us to like guide them, and they need us to protect them, and they need us to be involved. I mean, you guys share almost every day on one of your news feeds is a child who's been taken, a teenager who's been taken, a woman who's been taken. The sex trafficking is so real in our country. The internet is such a scary place for them. We need to be involved. I go through her Instagram feed and I delete 50 to 150 people every single week out of her feed that have followed her or have liked her. I have blocked probably 500 people in the last like 2 weeks, because I know that on the other side of that computer is just a fake person. It's not even a real account. You need to be you need to be involved in their social media. You need to know what's going on in their computers. Please don't say anything. I know what they're doing on their cell phones. I know what's going on in their cell phones, and it's not good. So like, they don't need it after 10 o'clock at night. Like, take it out of their room, take their laptop, their computer out of their room. Whatever it is that you can do to protect your child, you won't regret protecting them. You'll regret not being involved and not knowing what's going on, because you can't take back what they've heard, what they've seen, and what they've done. And I feel like that's kind of our responsibility as parents, to be that in their life, to help them so that she's not navigating that by herself. And it's not because it's a better than, it's because I feel like that's really what we're called as parents. You know, they didn't have the internet like they do now, and internet bullying and cyberbullying and the sexting that's going on, and all this inappropriate behavior that's going on a cell phone and on a laptop. We can get involved to try and slow it down and to stop it. But then it's going to take us to not want to be their friends. It's going to take us to be the parent. It's going to take us to stand up and say no. And it's okay for her to be mad at me when I say no. It's okay for her to not like me when I say no. It's okay for her to be frustrated when I say no. I don't care if she's frustrated and doesn't like me. What I care about is that I'm raising a world changer. What I care about is I want her to stand on her own 2 feet and do something special in this world. And you can't do something special when you're constantly anxious, depressed, lonely,
following everyone else,
and being like everybody else. So I'm asking you to share this video because there is a daughter, a granddaughter, a mother, a grandmother, a grandfather, a dad who will be encouraged by this message so that they can then get involved. And maybe they need to take their head out of the sand to hear what's really going on in their kids' school, what's really happening in our schools all across America, that these teens are being influenced and pressured by each other, and they don't even realize what they're doing. And if we just stepped in more and we didn't rely on these teachers, because the teachers aren't doing anything because they can't, because they have too many students, or it's really not even their job and they shouldn't be doing that. They should be educating our children, but they can't get involved. So we together need to be the village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes 1,000 villages to raise a special child. So lock arms with me right now, everybody, and say you're going to get involved in your kids' lives, and you're going to get involved in your niece and nephew's lives. You're going to get involved in your grandchildren's lives, and you're going to be there to do something. Do something for them today. Don't be their friend. It's okay if they're angry, because angry at you for a moment is better than a regret for a lifetime. So we both thank you for watching tonight. We hope that this message, I know it's heavy because some of the topics that we're going to bring here are going to be hard, but they're heavy because it is heavy, and they need us. She needs us, and we need to be that voice in their lives to encourage and help them. And I just thank you for watching and sharing our video, and I'm proud of her because I know when I was 15, I wouldn't have come on here live to share my brokenness with all of you. But because we know that her brokenness can help a child, can help one teen, can help one parent, then it's worth it. And we're going to keep doing it because we want so badly, and she so badly wants to change what's going on in school. She's so heartbroken, and we want to help. So we're on a mission to help, and we appreciate you guys. So thank you.
And I'm open to any if your teenagers want to talk. I'm a really good listener.
She's not ready for all that yet, so you're not putting all of them on her yet. But you guys can definitely have her, have them follow her on Instagram and be a part of our mission and help us change the world. There's women around the world that want to be touched by what we're sharing, by what we're doing, and ask us how you can get involved with what we're doing with Trades of Hope and be a part of something bigger than yourself this holiday. Be a part of something bigger than yourself in 2018. You have an entire year ahead of you that we can change the world together. And I'm excited for what's coming next year. I'm excited for what's coming for her. I'm excited for what God has for her, but I'm excited for what God has for all of you too. And we just pray blessings for all of you. And we thank you for watching, and we appreciate you watching. So thank you guys, and have an incredibly blessed night.